Word on the street is that King Harris's reckless mouth inside jail has finally caught up with him. And this time, the whispers aren't just idle gossip. Insiders are saying the situation behind bars got intense fast, and his father, T.I., is scrambling to contain the fallout. But the truth is, the damage might already be done. This isn't some slap-on-the-wrist situation. What started as a suburban traffic stop has spiraled into a full-blown family earthquake, shaking up not just the Harris household, but the entire hip-hop world watching from the sidelines. This story has it all: legacy, pride, rebellion, and the question of whether a son born into fame can escape the gravity of his father's shadow. It all began on what should have been a quiet October night in 2024. King Harris, the 20-year-old son of trap legend Clifford T.I. Harris Jr., was behind the wheel of a black BMW, cruising through Dunwoody, Georgia. It should have been uneventful. A quick stop at a gas station, a smooth drive home. But in a heartbeat, everything changed. As he pulled out of the gas station, King nearly sideswiped a police cruiser. The officers inside didn't waste a second. Their lights flashed, their car spun around, and suddenly, a regular suburban street was lit up like a movie scene. But what made this stop unforgettable wasn't just the near miss. As the officer approached the car, he immediately caught the distinct smell of weed and noticed a serious piece of hardware strapped to King's hip. A routine stop instantly turned into something else entirely. The body cam footage later showed the officer's calm voice against the backdrop of flashing lights, laying out the traffic violation while backup was already being called. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. When King stepped out of the car, the entire situation shifted. This wasn't some reckless, panicked kid. He was calm, collected, and surprisingly cooperative. He admitted straight up that he had multiple guns in the car. To viewers who later watched the footage, it was surreal. The son of a rap icon, casually acknowledging he had firepower and weed in the vehicle, while standing on a quiet suburban road like it was no big deal. But what the officers found when they ran his name through the system would take things from tense to explosive. The database pinged an active bench warrant out of Pickens County, Georgia. And to understand that, you have to rewind back to August 2022. 2 years earlier, King had been pulled over and hit with 3 misdemeanors: speeding, driving under the influence of drugs, and knowingly operating a car with a suspended license. On paper, they weren't the kind of charges that would end someone's life, but King didn't handle it properly. When the court notice was mailed out in September 2024, it came back undelivered. In Georgia, missing a court date, even for small stuff, can trigger a bench warrant. And by October 2024, that warrant was live. So when the cops in Dunwoody pulled his name, they didn't just see a traffic violation. They saw someone with an outstanding warrant, a car that smelled like weed, and guns on his person. In that moment, this stop went from a suburban inconvenience to a legal storm. And that was the moment they read him his Miranda rights, officially booking King Harris. First, he was processed at the DeKalb County Jail. Then, he was shipped off to Pickens County, where the original warrant came from. But the real turning point wasn't inside a courtroom. It was inside the patrol car during casual conversation. King let slip who his father was. "T.I.," he said almost casually, as if it wasn't going to change the entire dynamic of the story. The officers didn't react much in the moment, but once that footage hit the internet, everything exploded. This wasn't just another young man caught in the system. This was the son of a trap legend, facing a brush with the law that echoed his father's own past. Within hours of the footage surfacing, King Harris's name was everywhere. TMZ, Hot New Hip Hop, Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Fox 5 Atlanta. Headlines screamed the same thing: arrested, guns, and weed found, bench warrant confirmed. On paper, the case itself was short-lived, but culturally, it was massive. For years, T.I. had publicly warned King about the dangers of trying to live a street life. Interviews from years back showed the rapper-turned-businessman telling anyone who would listen that his son was headed down a dangerous path. And now, with flashing lights and body cam footage as proof, his prophecy seemed to be coming true. The optics were undeniable. The son of the self-proclaimed King of the South, arrested in the suburbs, with burners and weed in the car. It was almost poetic in the most tragic way. But here's the twist that caught everyone off guard. The very next day, October 15, 2024, the warrant was recalled. No new charges were filed for the marijuana or the firearms. Thanks to Georgia's laws, licensed carry is legal, and small amounts of weed usually mean tickets, not prison time. Just like that, legally speaking, King walked free. But the court of public opinion doesn't follow legal timelines. By the time the warrant was recalled, King's name had already been dragged through every corner of the internet. Memes were flying. Clips were edited and re-edited. Some people saw it as proof he was trying too hard to be street. Others defended him, saying plenty of young people have bench warrants for traffic violations. But the narrative was set. King Harris was now publicly tied to the same type of legal drama his father had worked so hard to escape. The deeper story here didn't start with that traffic stop, though. It started years earlier, with a complicated father-son dynamic that had been simmering in public. One of the most telling moments happened at a late 2023 Atlanta Falcons game. T.I. and King got into a heated argument that went viral. King shouted that he wasn't raised with a silver spoon, that he spent more time with his grandmother than in his parents' mansion. For him, this wasn't just about a fight, it was about identity. He didn't want to be seen as the spoiled celebrity kid. He wanted credibility. He wanted to keep it real. And standing on the other side was T.I., a man who had clawed his way out of the streets, served time on weapons charges in 2009, and rebuilt his life into a business empire. Watching that argument unfold was like watching two worlds collide, the father trying to shield his son from the streets, and the son determined to prove he didn't need shielding. This clash has often been compared to Ghost and Tariq from the TV show Power. It's a metaphor that fits almost too well. Ghost, the father, built an empire through grit and risk, trying to create a safer life for his family. Tariq, the son, rejects the protection, chasing independence even if it leads him down dangerous roads. That was T.I. and King on game day. The crowd watched in real time, both in the stands and online, as father and son argued not just about a moment, but about their entire worldview. It was clear the seeds of rebellion had been planted long before those blue lights flashed in Dunwoody. When King got arrested, that clash turned into something bigger. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was about legacy. T.I. didn't hold press conferences or go on social media tirades. Publicly, he stayed calm. But behind the scenes, sources say he was on the phone constantly, calling lawyers, checking with court clerks, doing whatever it took to control the situation. This wasn't just about keeping his son out of trouble. It was about protecting everything he had built over the past 2 decades. T.I.'s name isn't just attached to music, it's attached to businesses, investments, television, and cultural influence. One reckless night could shake that image. And just as the legal drama started to cool off, another chapter in King's life opened. On November 5th, 2024, less than a month after his arrest, King welcomed his first child with his longtime partner, Jananisha Big Nana Epps. He proudly posted online, November 5th, 8:09 a.m. Welcome, King Jr., time to take over. The timing was striking. 1 month he was in cuffs asking to call his dad. The next he was holding his own son. For many, this moment added a layer of poetic irony to the story. The rebellious son was now a father himself, standing at the edge of repeating the very cycles he had grown up watching. Meanwhile, the internet was still buzzing. Rumors swirled about what really happened during his short time in jail. Some claimed he had been jumped. Others said gangs were plotting to teach him a lesson because of his attitude inside. Whether or not those claims were true, they fed into the larger narrative that King was in over his head. Every rumor added more fuel to the fire, turning his legal hiccup into a full-blown cultural talking point. Parallel to all this was his music career. King has been releasing tracks since his teens, trying to carve out his own lane in the industry. But the October arrest complicated everything. On one hand, controversy drives clicks. When he dropped the song Dear Son shortly after his baby's arrival, people tuned in not just for the music, but to see how he would respond to this new chapter. Would he show growth, regret, defiance? On the other hand, there was a real risk. His name could easily become more associated with mugshots than mixtapes. Billboard even pointed out that being a celebrity's child is a double-edged sword. The doors are wide open, but the expectations are sky-high. The Harris name carries weight in hip-hop, and that weight sits squarely on King's shoulders. T.I. built an empire on lessons learned the hard way. King is now being judged on whether he'll uphold that legacy or unravel it. Every move he makes is interpreted not just as his own, but as a reflection of his father's parenting, his family's values, and the legacy of an entire generation. That's what makes this story so gripping. It's not just about a traffic stop, it's about a young man at a crossroads. On one side, he's the reckless, privileged kid chasing street cred. On the other, he's a new father, a budding artist, and someone who could rise beyond the headlines if he chooses to. The internet loves a downfall, but it also loves a redemption arc. And King Harris's story is teetering between both. He's more than just T.I.'s son. He's a complex figure growing up in real time under the world's microscope. The flashing lights of Dunwoody weren't just police lights. They were a spotlight, illuminating the tension between legacy and independence, protection and rebellion, father and son. The real question isn't whether the gangs inside jail made threats or whether the rumors are true. The real question is whether King Harris will grow into his full potential before the cycle repeats. Will he be remembered for a mugshot or a milestone?